We're going to get started. Are you ready, Paul? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting. We have a couple things. First thing is please silence your cell phones, or if you still have a pager, that too. Anybody that has a pager these days. And I generally use that as a hint for me to silence mine as well. First order of business, roll call.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner. Charles Ainsworth. Ike Akenwande.
Present.
Connie Scothorn. Present. Richard Tannenbaum.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great. I am assuming that everyone got an opportunity to review the minutes. Do I have a motion and a second, please?
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. There are no cases withdrawn. There are no continuance requests. We have consent docket items, two consent docket items. Is there anyone here that needs to address those? Does anyone want to pull any of those consent docket items off of the docket, off the consent docket? Do we have a motion?
Second.
Okay, that was a Tannenbaum and Ike.
Akenwande.
I'm sorry. Motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent docket passes. We have one case for individual consideration. Is the applicant present? Could you come forward, state your name, sign it on the little piece of paper in front of you?
Good morning. Should I sign now or?
Yes, well, whenever.
Okay.
You can
Thank
talk
you.
to us if you want. You want to explain your name is?
My name is Rand Elliott. I live at 425 Northwest 15th Street.
Okay. And you want to tell us a little bit about your...
Sure. This particular project at 7 North Harrison is literally at the railroad track in the bottom of 4th Street. And it has been in the hands of others for as long as I can remember. And I have the Flatiron Building just down the block, the Harding Brothers Meat Company building. And we have been there 19 years, and the entire 19 years, this piece of property has been basically pretty much a slum or in shambles for that period of time. There have been tenants in and out, and within the last year or so, we had the opportunity to purchase it, which we did. There were some challenges with existing tenants and so forth, but we're past all of that. And we are at a point where in our studies have determined in our minds that the building has outlasted its usefulness. We have studied this building very carefully. I consider myself a preservationist. We've done a number of projects that have National Park Service register things, and so I am very sympathetic to existing buildings. However, in looking at this building and having lived with it at the end of the block for 19 years, it really has been a blight to the neighborhood. And it's my belief that in the best interest of the neighborhood that it should be removed. We have looked at it very carefully in terms of its existing condition. And I think the photographs are in your packet. I want to start with reading you a letter, if I may, from a structural engineer that describes the building, and we believe that the building is structurally unsound, and I will share that confirmation with this letter from my structural engineer. On May 1st, I inspected, this is from Stan Lingo, who's a structural engineer. On May 1st, I inspected the existing structure at 7 North Harrison. The existing structure is a combination of load-bearing masonry, wood, steel framing, and concrete floor slabs. The building is comprised of a series of additions of varying floor elevations. The existing structure is damaged by significant movement of the foundation system, resulting in cracking and distortion of the masonry walls. The concrete floor slabs are not level due to initial Placement, cutting, and patching of the building has been modified into low-quality additions to the original building. The roof structure is also in a state of disrepair with water intrusion, modifications for various building occupants, and the small additions. The existing building at 7 North Harrison will require partial replacement of the foundation, CMU walls, and roof framing. This replacement is needed to ensure water tightness, ability to carry code-mandated loads, and to repair the damage of previous occupants. The waterproofing, mechanical, electrical, and glazing systems will require replacement in this building. Our experience with older buildings is extensive, and this building should be removed and replaced. The most important part of the building is its foundation. This foundation has experienced significant movement resulting in displacement of the walls, waterproofing of the perimeter, and the life of the building. Patchwork repair will not restore this building due to its existing conditions, variety of additions, and lack of maintenance. And if you look at the photographs, you'll know that there are 2- and 3-inch gaps. The building is just about to fall down, and I have been particularly worried about the fact that we've had visitors in this building that have taken up encampment, and we've actually had the police come out and try to encourage them to go someplace else. We are fearful that even though we have secured it, as you can see in the images, we've had intrusions and so forth. And so I'm fearful that someone might be in here and there'd be a collapse in some way unbeknownst to us. So that's certainly one of them. And then having officed in a building that has been burned before, we know that often these buildings are prone to that kind of experience. We've carefully looked at this building, and unlike other buildings that we see in downtown that have architectural features or some redeeming qualities, it's our belief that this building has lost all of those features. It has been renovated, sort of a loose term, renovated, changed, added onto, and so forth so many times that the historic fabric is completely gone. And we really feel like that removal of the building is a benefit to the community. And my particular point of view about this sort of thing is, number one, it breaks my heart when we lose buildings in downtown. On the other hand, buildings have a life and a use, and this particular building, we believe, has kind of come to its end. I can tell you that there will be something better that will arrive on this site, and we're in some early planning stages. And so I think that's always the case when we imagine buildings being removed. The goal would be that it's something that is put back is as good or better than that, and that is our intention. So those are my thoughts. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Lisa? Any staff comments?
The main staff points were that, yes, this building is very weathered, without question, but it was identified on the intensive level survey of downtown as a potential resource to a potential district. So that exactly.
In 2010.
In 2010, yes. So that fact gave us, led us to make two recommendations. One, if the committee feels that it is not a potential resource, then to recommend demolition. If the committee feels that it is or would be contributing, then to deny demolition, because most of the ordinances are written to preserve and protect existing buildings.
All right. Dick, do you have?
I've been by it, I'm familiar with it, and it needs to be taken down. It doesn't add anything, and I'm sure whatever they come up with will be an addition, an improvement to that particular spot. It's really a disaster. It's not even a thought, in my opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come speak to this one way or the other? I would actually agree with Dick. I ate at Leo's there and was worried about falling through the floor, so it was, and that was a long time ago. Anyway, do we have a motion? Okay, we have a motion to approve the demolition.
I'll second.
I have a second from Connie. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Approve your demolition request. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We have a couple of items for discussion. some presentations. And the first item is by Mr. Rand Elliott. I should have just made you stay here.
Betsy, could I preface that the presentations, there's no action being sought, and it's just an informational presentation. So the purpose is to get the commission's comments ahead of the actual application. But that said, nothing that commission advises is binding in terms of a motion.
No, we've always encouraged that. We
Right, yes.
prefer
Yeah.
to,
Absolutely.
before we have to take a stance, that we get familiar with the project, and that's been going on more and more. So we encourage it, and looking forward to your comments.
But I do say this is the commission's opportunity to point out anything that might be of consequence, because there's no reason to have these people come before us and give a presentation without
I'd really like for you to...
pointing out some of the things that we think might be issues in the future.
Right, and we have not done staff reports on any of these, although some of these are, you've seen before in some fashion. Okay.
I might begin by saying that this is also in the neighborhood. This is across the street to the east from my existing building, and it's in the Flatiron District. It's 5th and Harrison in Oklahoma, all coming together at this time. We have, I've been staring out my window to the east at this building for 19 years as well, and we finally have the opportunity to do something really good. We truly believe that this is a gateway into downtown, coming off of the Broadway extension and so forth, and here's an opportunity to do something really, really great. This, on the other hand, is a building that has some integrity, if you will, that remains. A couple of historic moments. Can you click, and we'll go through and just do this very quickly. You can see the location. My office is at the intersection below, kind of the lower left. And Harrison, of course, is the diagonal. The phase one is the blue triangle that's there, and then phase two is a potential opportunity to do more on this particular site. But as you can see, it's a very prominent site, very important site, and truly a gateway opportunity. Next. These are the existing conditions. I don't know how many of you are interested in history, but it's unique to know that Frank Battle and David Battle, who are sons and gentlemen that are Oklahomans and Oklahoma Cityans, in fact. David Battle is a cost estimator. His uncle, Frank Medders, built this building in 1925. And in fact, would you go back to the cover? I thought you might find this interesting. David actually had the specifications for this building that is dated March 11th, 1925. And this is actually a copy of a portion of that initial typewritten spec that's on carbon paper, by the way. And so this was the request for contractor submissions and where their office building was, and it was due at 4 p.m. that day. So Minot & Reed is the name of the architectural firm, and that firm was around for a number of years. Okay, sorry. There's the location. There's what it looks like right now. It was originally the home for the Como Hotel, which was on the second floor, and on the ground level was a series of retail spaces and office spaces. It has very much the same proportion and scale as my building does across the street. It's typically 12 to 14-foot ceilings on the ground level, and the upper level is about 10. Next. This is along the 5th Street side. You can see the big windows and that sort of thing. There are actually remnants of some of the existing windows inside the building, so they sort of did us a favor from that particular point of view, but we will be replacing them, as you'll see in a moment, with historically accurate windows. Next. This is the kind of the east-facing side. Again, these buildings were all unair-conditioned and so forth, and so they were often high windows to allow air circulation. Next. Particularly exciting details for those of you who like this sort of thing. Very interesting brick corner detail, sort of a Frank Lloyd Wright sort of detail, and this very simple blonde brick. Next. I thought you also might be interested to know that if you haven't studied Sanborn maps in the downtown area, it's fascinating. And the Sanborn maps actually began in the late 1800s, and they were documents by the insurance companies to tell where the vulnerable buildings were for fire in downtown. And so often the masonry buildings are designated and the buildings that are wood structure, and there were many apartment buildings. And if you were to get into this drawing deeply, you would see a Chinese laundry, you would see a restaurant, you would see a horse barn. There would be all kinds of things going on in and around this area. But that highlighted triangle is the site that we're talking about today. In 1922, the building did not exist. If you go to the next slide, and in 1948, it did exist. And so we know and can confirm that that period of time is when the building was actually built. Next. We've done as-built. It's about 13,000 square feet. Next. Very simple steel structure, masonry, load-bearing walls on the perimeter. Next. This is the proposed elevation, having been through a number of historic projects like this over the years. It's all about windows and the proportion scale. These openings are all existing. We are proposing to, is there a highlighter? I'm sorry, a pointer? No? Okay. Well, the little windows above the big windows on the ground level is the transoms, and the transoms, of course, were operable at one time. That's how air circulation moved. And then the lower level, that's really a storefront kind of detail along the bottom area just above the sill. And then the second floor, of course, were the hotel rooms. And you can see that the window treatments and spacing changes. Often one of them was in a bathroom. So we're going to put historically accurate windows back that are recommended and approved by the National Park Service in Washington. They will all be, on the upper level, will be double hung and so forth, and will be appropriate for this kind of thing. We're actually proposing to get tax credits for this. Okay.
So when you found some existing windows, the transoms, were they configured that way?
We have pieces of it, yes. We have pieces of it, and when you don't have enough information and you don't have any photographs, you sort of stipulate or imagine what it might be. And the fact that this was built within a decade of my building, the idea is that the transoms are likely to be very close to the same kind of thing. The upper floor windows, there are a few that are remaining, and they were all double hung and so forth, and we have their proportion and scale, and we're going to use that to match. What happened on the ground level often was that through our own research in our building, we found that it was an early PPG storefront, and it was a pressure gasket and a metal mullion. And that's the proposal that we're making here. And we've been able to talk to Pittsburgh Plate Glass about the historic documents, and we actually have a copy of that detail, and we'll be proposing that on the ground level. So it'll be a very accurate historic preservation project. Even though it's a very simple building, there's nothing fancy about it. It does have a certain character, sort of industrial character from its period. Next.
What's your proposed use for this building?
It's an office building.
Okay.
This is just the along the Harrison side. I'm sorry, the Harrison side. Next. This gives you a sense of the section through the building. It is an interesting steel truss system. We've had our structural engineer take a look at it, and it seems to be appropriate for current loading. In certain areas, we may end up increasing it or shoring it up a little bit, but for the most part, it's in good shape. Next. In fact, the masonry is in outstanding condition. This was just a detail I thought you might appreciate and understand the process that we've been through on how the windows are proposed and basically what's behind the plywood. Next. This is just an example of cross-sections that are possible for window systems of this quality and period. Next. The proposed concept for the exterior, we're excited to share this with you. It's going to change the corner dramatically from what it's been. It has been unoccupied for 27 years. And I've been looking at it out my window for 19, so it's about time, we think, to make something great happen. So you can get a sense of it. You're really looking east. This would be the access street, 5th Street on the right going to the highway, and then Harrison is on the left. We're proposing to do some planters that offer a little bit of personality along the sidewalk. There's more and more people walking in our neighborhood because of the housing that's coming in. And then we've proposed to do a sign and a landscape feature out in the corner. It's a massive amount of concrete in this particular intersection, so we're trying to do everything we can to soften it up. We understand we'll have to do a revocable permit and so forth with that, but that's our proposal. Next. Get an idea of what it looks like from the north. The Como Hotel entrance was this little section here on the left. The storefront, the recessed storefront is still there, and it's our suggestion and recommendation to leave that. You can also see the windows on the, in essence, the east side, which are up high on the red brick wall. Some people want to know why it's red brick and blonde brick. Red brick was a common, and it was an inexpensive brick, and so you would put it where people can't see that, or so to speak. And then the face brick, or the blonde brick, was the expensive one. Next.
We saw that same thing on the Braniff building where they took the red brick off.
Right. This is the south side. What we're showing are window shades. One of the things that you have in older buildings is that you could do window, or you could do awnings or something like that, and just doesn't seem appropriate. And so we're going to do insulated glass, of course, and we're proposing that we do a solar shade inside, and so this represents a solar shade application. They all open and that sort of thing, but it allows them to have a little bit of respite from the south sun. And then you can see the corner and the planter on the left. Next. The end. We're thrilled to be able to be here and do this and be a part of it, and very, very excited. We think that it will just sort of create another opportunity in the neighborhood to have something great happen.
It's a great project.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for showing us ahead of time.
Our pleasure.
We appreciate it. Okay, the next project is shown by Melody Compton, Reese Associates, St. Anthony Hospital. Hi, Melody.
Hi, good morning. Melanie Compton. I'm with Reeves Associates. I'll just say next slide, if that's okay. All right. We presented and received approval from the Downtown Design Review Committee in early 2013 for an addition to St. Anthony Hospital. And since that time, Saints has accomplished many things from that previous project. We've brought on Turner Construction, and they have recently completed the new parking lot between Northwest 8th and 9th, between Dewey and Walker. That was part of the previous submittal. We have also demolished the Upward Transitions building that's adjacent to Kaiser's without any concerns, so that went really well. We're back today because we have redesigned the addition to better meet and better accomplish the long-term goals of St. Anthony Hospital, and that's what I would like to review with you today. Slide number 2. This is a site plan that, similar to what we showed last time, the new addition is going in the same location. The structure now is a 4-story addition versus the 6. The parking lot, or the parking structure that's below the building, part of the previous submittal was the new parking lot between 8th and 9th. That was 278 cars. The location that this addition is going is about 111 spaces. So we have quite a large gain of parking spaces where this project is going. And then the other level was a mechanical penthouse, and we've incorporated mechanical type spaces within the existing floor levels. So the addition remains in the same location. It's still connected to the existing hospital east entry through kind of a public concourse area, and it's also still connected at the back northwest corner to the existing north wing of the hospital at different levels. And that's for patient transport. The public elevators are on the southwest corner, and those are more for visitor transport. The services in the building remain the same. There's an emergency department at the lowest level. There is a step-down unit, and then there are 2 levels of ICU. The ambulance entry Instead of it coming off of 10th and ramping up, and we did that in the previous project to align the emergency department up with an existing cardiac emergency department, but now we have lowered the emergency department down a few feet, and we will transition the patients by large transport elevators. So this allowed us to move the ambulance entry off of Northwest 10th. They will come in at the light at Dewey and Northwest 10th and proceed and drive through an ambulance court and then exit near the west end of Kaisers. There are actually two lanes for ambulance traffic in that area, and then there's parallel parking for security vehicles, and then there is a screen wall that we'll see on renderings here in just a minute. The screen wall is still the same design as before that we had for Kaisers around their trash service area. Same design as before. And our mechanical and electrical services that you see noted as the new central plant is still located south of Kaisers. It's beyond the 10-foot easement that has been approved by their council. And I'll show you the renderings of the screen walls that surround that as well. The vibration and noise concerns from before are still all addressed, but we do have even more improvements. We're going from a water-cooled chiller to an air-cooled chiller, so the condensation clouds that you normally see in colder temperatures will no longer be an issue. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, this is looking toward the west at the addition. And this slide calls out the exterior materials as well. Same as before, brick color to match existing hospital, curtain wall, storefront glass, metal panel. There are some landscaping and bench height architectural precast concrete seat walls that are engaged with the mechanical screen wall that you're seeing there with the LED vertical light boxes. That should be familiar from last time as well. They're of varying sizes. And then the central plant along the top is aluminum composite metal panel, and the color will match the metal panel on the addition. Okay, next slide. Okay, looking toward the southwest, just a little bit farther up Walker. We still have a landscape element to Kaisers to enhance their outdoor seating area. It is a precast feature for the bench and a landscape element. And what's not shown in that is a sculptural piece that Joe Hodges, president of SSM Healthcare, has his eye on. So we will get that incorporated into the rendering. Next slide. Still along Walker. The existing fence and the existing sign will remain. There will be of course, some new directional signage applied. Visitors can enter in this existing entry off of Walker and proceed still as they do now up to the east entry, or emergency visitors can turn in this entry and turn immediately to the right and arrive at the emergency department. Next slide. This is a view along 10th Street, looking toward the south. We have incorporated a screen wall along 10th, and the parking will remain, the 45-degree parking will remain along Northwest 10th as well. The screen wall is a combination of rough-faced limestone, architectural precast concrete, and that also matches the trash enclosure at Kaisers. The base of the addition is limestone in varying textures and an ashlar pattern, and that matches the existing hospital's limestone base as well. Next slide. A little bit farther down 10th Street, just a different view of the ambulance entry. This is the light at 10th and Dewey, and you can see just a different view of the screen wall. Next slide. This is a bird's eye view, this slide and the next slide, just to give you a better look at the entire project. Next slide. A little bit different angle, looking from above. Next slide. The landscaping and the new streetscape, it will take clues from what's there existing. St. Anthony has completed many projects around their campus, and we're just going to continue that look. More recently, the new parking lot at Northwest 8th and 9th and Dewey and Walker, that is the landscape type and what will match with fencing and landscaping. The light poles, fencing, patterning in the drives, that will all match the existing area. And next slide. We can just go through these pretty quickly because these are just rendered views without the notes. You can refer back to those if needed. Next slide. We've included a site demolition plan for reference. You can see that this is the area of the 111 parking spaces and the area behind Kaiser's. Next slide. Similar to before, this is the footprint of the addition and how it connects to the east entry and to the north wing of the hospital. We've also included in the next 3 slides our floor plans. As mentioned, next slide, as mentioned earlier, we have a central plant that's to the south of Kaiser's. Next slide. The emergency department at the lowest level. You can see in the northwest corner are the patient transport elevators that also connect to the helipad on the roof. The helipad has been approved by the FAA, and IMSA has also approved the ambulance entry and exit. Next slide. And then upper floors are the step-down unit, and then next slide. And next slide, 2 floors of the ICU. Next slide. Also for reference, these match the renderings that were previously shown. These are for reference as well. So we've got the elevations. Next slide. And next slide. The signage, similar to before as well. Sign number 1 is an existing monument sign that will have new directional signage installed. Sign number 2 and number 6. Number 6 is a vertical emergency sign. Number 2 is a horizontal emergency sign to denote the entrance to the emergency department. Sign number 5 and number 3 are exterior signage up high on the facility. Sign number 4 is at the end of the ambulance canopy that will say ambulance entry only, and 7 is ambulance exit only along Northwest 10th. All right. I believe that's my last slide. Let's see. Oh, no, there's some views of the different signs. This is the one as you enter off of Walker. Next. This is the horizontal emergency sign, and then there's a vertical emergency sign. Signage up high on the building. Ambulance only sign at the end of the canopy, and another on the south face of the building, and the vertical. There we go. Our project schedule, our site demolition and utility relocations, we're planning to start those in July. We have an early release site demo and utilities package going into the city in a few weeks. So wanted to make sure we came to you and presented what we're up to. So I believe I'll be back next month to present our finals for approval. Wanted to open this up for any comments so that we could have a chance to get those incorporated.
No staff comments on this. Any comments from the committee?
There was some controversy with Kaiser's. All that's been worked out?
Yes.
Because we don't need Eric back here again. Okay, good.
Yes,
So
it
as
went
far
well.
as the Kaiser's thing, just as a reminder for anyone that wasn't here for that, they were concerned about all of their potential parking going away.
Right.
And obviously, there's not any parking. In fact, you guys have less parking near Kaiser's than you did before. So are they welcome to use the St. Anthony parking that is a block away?
I might have
Kyle?
as well. Any parking comments? I'll just step aside.
I'm Kyle Dodworth with St. Anthony Hospital. Yes, they're welcome to use that parking. In addition, we've engaged a civil engineer. We're going to be working on with Brian Fitzsimmons, who is with Midtown Redevelopment and worked with us, has presented some possible potential parking concepts for street parking at 45-degree angles, and we're going to be working on that diligently to make sure that we're being good stewards and also being good neighbors to community members around. So they can park on the east parking side right now. A lot of tenants already have people parking there, Saturn Grill, et cetera. People park there all the time, and that new parking lot we're making available for other people to be able to park, tenants in the community, those types of things. So.
Okay, great. I had several other questions for Melody. I really like what you're doing for Kaiser's. It's, I think that'll be helpful. That actually, I mean, with the windy weather we've had recently, that'll be a nice wind block for their patio. So that's pretty cool. And you've eliminated all structured parking in association with that building?
Yes.
Okay. So what they have is basically the parking on the street minus any entry or exit that you have to have for the...
And 20 to 25 spaces there by the emergency department entry.
Right.
We are in the process of calculating our handicap requirements, so you'll see that next time.
Okay. And I understand that we totally appreciate everything, everyone appreciates everything that St. Anthony has done for that area. And however, there are a couple of issues. One is the central plant and how, and we talked about this last time, and how it kind of crowds that sidewalk. And I'm just curious if we could push that back a little bit, a foot, 2 feet, just so you've got your planter wall and then the 5-foot sidewalk and then a little bit of grass and then the curb, and it just feels a little crowded in there.
Right. This is a very tight, we consider it an urban site, as you're very familiar. We will look into that and work with EDA, who's our mechanical electrical consultant, on the layout of that central plant to see if there's any give along that street side. That is why we incorporated that seat bench along the sidewalk, instead of having just a small strip of grass, because there is activity along that sidewalk and street. And so there was some intent there with the LED light boxes, just so people can sit and enjoy and not try to just get some green grass in there just to get some, that might be hard to maintain. So.
Okay, and then on your, it's the elevation of the north side.
Okay.
Your sheet 7.
That would be slide 7 as well.
I understand the pushback, pushing it back so you can get your emergency vehicles in and out and they can pass each other and all that stuff. And I do understand that the function doesn't really allow a lot of glass. One of the things we like to see is some interaction between the building, what's going on inside the building and outside. And a lot of times because of privacy you can't allow that. It would be, if you had the opportunity to put any kind of windows in there along that street frontage, that would be great. Or maybe even some additional layering with your landscape, just for interaction with the public, so that they don't, it's a better walk. The MRI is adjacent, so it continues to be kind of closed in and not as walkable. So that's just a suggestion.
So Betsy, you're talking about glass on the base of the building.
Right.
And the screen wall is fine, it's just glassiness at the building.
Right.
Okay.
Just any kind of, interest that we can, and.
That actually is in the works.
Oh, good.
This is moving so fast, every day's different, so that is in the works, so you'll see that next time.
Okay, and the last comment is that you've used a lot of plaster, or at least what I can tell is plaster on, low on the building, on that emergency sign by the emergency room. And I was just going to suggest that maybe in areas that are really close to the ground, you might use something a little bit more durable, but
Are you talking about the ambulance entry or the walk-in?
a walk-in entry.
Okay. The element that has the vertical emergency, we do have a limestone base, and then it transitions. But maybe...
Just a suggestion. I mean, for the durability and the
And we've
longevity of
talked
that
about
building.
that as well, and making sure whatever hits the ground is durable. Okay.
And that summarizes all my comments.
Okay. Sounds good.
I just want to ditto the corner, because I would really like to see more walkability around that corner, around Kaiser's. That's very tight there, and that's a big pedestrian pass-through. That's just going to get more busy. So
Okay.
if that's possible, I think that'd be great.
Okay, let's see.
Any other comments? Any comments from anyone in the galley? We totally appreciate you doing this. It's exciting to see this happen, and looking forward to a new emergency room there.
Yeah, thank you.
And we have one more presentation, Mike Clark. Oh, Eric. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to switch on you this morning. Eric Quinger, the Public Works Director for Oklahoma City. So I'll present the City Hall lawn to you today. I'm going to pull that up just here in just a minute. I think as I do a brief introduction, I think everybody's familiar with Project 180, and I think of all the Project 180 improvements. The City Hall lawn project is actually one of those Project 180 projects that's now ready to proceed, and the preliminary design is nearly complete. I think some of the things that you'll see with this are going to be very similar to some of the amenities and some of the work that was done, of course, by PDG. PDG is our architect on this, and I do have Jim Crosby with us today in the audience to answer any questions that may come up as well. But a lot of the features that you're going to find on the City Hall lawn match and mimic a lot of those things with Bicentennial Park for a reason. When we look at the project limits, and of course, as we kind of orient ourselves in the project limits, it's in this building ourselves, the City Hall that the site is surrounding. Bicentennial Park, you'll find to the left here. The work at Bicentennial is obviously complete, and there's been a tremendous opportunities for events and things that have already been held there. It's created a new atmosphere and space that's really becoming more vibrant for this west side of downtown. But as we look east, there were some original plans to also enhance this site of City Hall. So you see the limits are really bound by Walker on the west and Hudson on the east, Couch and Colcord Drives. This is a rendering of what that site will more represent. And of course, on the left is Bicentennial Park. The street that's running north and south through the middle of this drawing is Walker Avenue. You can see City Hall structure with the roof, and then you can see some other elements like the historic fountain on the east as well. When we talk about this site, this was obviously a former rail yard, and so I think as a part of the presentation that was given previously about Bicentennial Park, a lot of the elements that you see here with some of the sweeping lines and some of the connectivity, the black granite seat walls, some of the pedestrian access, a lot of the features were taken out of historic context for the area, some of it being some of the architectural millwork that's on the windows of City Hall and the Civic Center, some of it from just other site access issues with some of that center connectivity that you find through the center to try to represent some of those rail lines that were part of the history and the fabric of the area. But when we look at some other things, as we go through some of these other slides, I'll get into a few more of those details. This is just an aerial view to kind of just show you that larger campus plan. And again, it's to be a fully integrated site, one that some of the primary goals, pedestrian access. Obviously, with an aging site like City Hall that was built in the 30s, ADA access is paramount, and so this will actually ensure that we've got ADA accessibility across the site, very similar to what we have with the Bicentennial Park. The cost estimate for the City Hall portion, as we go through some of these next slides, this is estimated to be about a $2 million project. We're very close to finishing the plans. Again, this is the preliminary drawings that we have. The goals would be, with your approval next month, again, this is just for presentation today, is that we'd proceed with work this summer, finish it up in the spring of 2015. On the west side of City Hall, some of the features that you're going to notice, again, some of the elements, we're going to restore the flagpoles that were once located on the east side of City Hall to the formal side of City Hall, the west side. You can see those here in this rendering. Some of the things that I'll show you in just a moment, most of, if not many of the trees that are currently on site, which could be considered historic, are also going to be retained. This is the historic fountain on the east side of City Hall. There was a lot of conversations regarding the fountain on some of the previous discussions. The elements of the fountain, how it would be restored. There is a series of white cap stones that go around the perimeter of that fountain today. All of those can be removed, cleaned, and restored onto a newly reconstructed fountain. There's also some black granite that's located on the west side of that fountain. You can kind of see it to the back of the fountain here. That's also historic. Those are also going to be removed, cleaned, and replaced. And so in every effort possible, the aging fountain, which has a number of leaks that cannot be located, it's just not been a serviceable fountain, we're able to actually restore it back to nearly its original condition while modernizing at the same time. Some of the modernization will include some new water jets that will be a part of the water feature itself. We're also going to be able to add some LED lighting opportunities, similar to what's being done in downtown, but at the same time, the historic stone, the historic granite, the historic shape, the rectangular fountain, all those things are going to be retained. There are some art elements all across the City Hall lawn. Some of those are more prominent. The one like the clock, the Centennial Clock is going to be relocated just to the small green space that's adjacent to the Arts Museum. We also have the Stanley Draper statue that sits on the east side that's going to be maintained. We also have the Earth Meets Sky sculpture that was constructed a couple of years ago, also on the east lawn, that will be retained as well. There's also a number of historic plaques that are in some of the flower beds and in some of the lawns. Those have been inventoried, and Public Works and the Parks Department are working very closely together to relocate many of those back into the City Hall lawn project. But there are a few of those that Parks has ID'd that may be better served in another park. But for the most part, all of the art that is currently at City Hall lawn is going to be retained at City Hall as well. This is the salvage tree and landscape material plan, and I think I just wanted to reference, there's a lot of historic landscaping. There are some recent projects that landscaped much of the bushes and the shrubbery around the building, all which is going to be retained. Those trees that are going to be retained are identified in green on this drawing. Those that are in gray are scheduled for removal. The ones mostly in gray, the larger trees, are actually a lot of the red cedars that we're having some issues with in Oklahoma City. They do cause certain alarm for fire hazard. There are many on site that are actually diseased and need to be removed, but for the major part of the renovation, all the large oaks and the large trees are being retained. There are the crepe myrtles that are around the existing fountain that, although being removed, if you recall on the rendering for the new fountain, they're going to be replaced. So we're actually going to restore the fountain, but we're going to restore the landscaping around the fountain as well. So with that, this is that plan. There's also some magnolias on the west side that are identified in orange, and those will be maintained as well. Some of the other, I think, general items, as I mentioned, we're working very closely to make sure that the pedestrian access, one of the main features of the park, also paying tribute to a lot of the historic elements of City Hall and the City Hall lawn. And again, this would be that view from Hudson and Park looking back towards City Hall. A lot of work. We're available to answer any questions that you might have. And of course, I've also got Mike Clark, our project manager, here with us today that can respond as well.
Thanks, Eric. I think this is, judging from what we saw previously, this is a little bit more sensitive to existing plant material and the fact that we love our fountain. So I like it.
Well, I would offer this too. I think when we went through the original review for Bicentennial Park, and there was a lot of collaboration between city departments, I think that has now extended into this design. Obviously, a lot of partnership with the planning department, coordination also with the city's parks department when we start talking about landscaping and art materials. And so there's just a lot of attention that's being paid to that from all levels of the city. And I think what you have is a very coordinated design that we're prepared to move forward.
I compliment the mall effect of City Hall and the music. I think it's going to be terrific for downtown. I am a downtowner, so I'll enjoy it. But having events and bringing that urbanism to life is what this is all about, and the fountain is terrific and well used and well planned. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's speed up the schedule. Let's get going.
When if I
See you
think-
next month.
If I comment on the schedule, we purposely have held off bringing the presentation to you because we want to make sure that we finish the parking garage that's immediately south of City Hall. Obviously, having competing contractors for space is something that we're aware of. So the timing of this, and the reason I mentioned summer of 14 to start, is just as soon as the garage is able to demobilize the contractor on that site, we want to be prepared to mobilize here and of course, have this work completed by spring of 15. I believe they're at 10. I think they're getting ready to top out, so I think they're getting very, very close.
So you haven't placed the artwork yet? You're working on that still, or?
Well, all of the artwork that I mentioned, the Stanley Draper, the Earth Meets Sky, if we consider the Centennial Clock, all of those will be placed. When you look at the fountain, if it's a piece of art, obviously it's going to be retained, but there are some very small plaques that are located around the site that we've inventoried. Some of them we've uncovered just through some general maintenance, but I will say that we will work very closely together with parks. Many will be restored on site, the ones that are made for City Hall. There have been a few identified that are being proposed to possibly go to other city parks. I don't know exactly which of those they are, but there's a half dozen or so of these plaques that are on the City Hall side.
Any other questions?
I'll just say it looks great. I can't wait. This is going to be such an improvement to this building and the downtown.
Any comments from anyone in the galley?
And just one more thing, I just want to say, I like it too. It's really going to be nice for pedestrians. And I like the fact that it's close to a lot of other places where you can walk from and just easily get here and spend more time. So it's going to be a really great thing. Look forward to it.
Thank you. We appreciate all the comments.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. We look forward to seeing you next month. We have one presentation. Did we want to do a presentation with? Okay. And that is, we have the administrative approvals. Any highlights for that? Lisa, do you know?
Mostly, all of them are either time extensions to already approved items or minor revisions to already approved items.
Okay. With that, we meet next month.
There are cases, we have received applications, including Melanie has submitted
Yeah.
St. Anthony's.
And it sounds like the city will be presenting the, okay. So we have some cases to hear next month on June 19th. We are adjourned.
Wait. Applications for June, and I think everybody here received an email talking about how ULI is offering, or the city is offering for all commissioners to join ULI under the city's umbrella membership, which is only $100. That's substantially less expensive than an individual or corporate membership. Teresa, there in the bright poppy-colored jacket, will be outside with applications and to answer any questions.
And I just reiterate that I have joined through that process. I was a member through my office, and I've joined through the process. It's very affordable. It makes conferences more affordable. So anyway, I would encourage all of you. Plus there's some added benefits, as I've mentioned before, with the Congress of New Urbanism training, and it just kind of gives us a sense of what we're really here to accomplish. So anyway, I hope you'll visit with them. Teresa. Would you guys like to come forward and just tell us why you like ULI?
You asked, so I'm Blair Humphreys. I'm the chair of ULI Oklahoma. ULI Oklahoma is a district council of the International Urban Land Institute, and we're going on about year 7 now. And I just tell you, we do a lot of local programs. We're very knitted into what's going on in the development community. And it basically includes multiple disciplines across the spectrum of everything we do and everything you all do here. And we're just pushing to provide leadership in land use. Our mission is to provide leadership in land use and then in creating and sustaining a thriving Oklahoma City. So it's exactly the same type of thing you want to do. We have great resources. Urban Land is a monthly magazine. It talks about great projects and best practices going on throughout the country. We have great events. We have a monthly luncheon. And many of these events are only open to ULI members. And then we also do a fall conference and a spring meeting. This year we were in Vancouver. And so an opportunity to meet with like-minded Oklahoma Cityans, but to do it in Vancouver and get to experience places like that. Or we'll be in New York City in the fall. So would love to have you. We'd be delighted to have you as members and be delighted to have you involved. And if we can help with that, just let us know. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anything else? Any comments from the commission?
It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.